Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the December monthly meeting of the Botetourt County Board of Supervisors, the final meeting of this calendar year. Glad to have you all here. First thing we will do, now that I've called the meeting to order, is to go out of closed session. And this is a perfunctory thing to confirm that we are no longer in closed session, basically. So here we go. I'm going to make this resolution. Be it resolved that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements and only such matters as were identified in the motion to go into closed session were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed session. Yes.
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 Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. We are out of closed session. Before we proceed, I want to make a minor correction to the agenda, the consent agenda, which will come up in a few minutes. The consent agenda includes two items, one of which is approval of the minutes of the November 26th regular meeting. Because we're kind of out of sync this month to accommodate Christmas, this particular meeting is a week earlier than usual. So as a result, we don't have the November minutes ready to approve, but we will catch up with that as well as this meeting's minutes in January. So no minutes available right now for the November meeting. Okay, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as we traditionally do, at the beginning of each meeting, we'll respect a moment of silence for personal thoughts. Certainly, I would think most people would be reflecting on the holiday, Christmas, and realizing that there's a lot of people who are hungry. Most of us, I think I dare say all of us, are not. So we're grateful for that. People out there are lonely. We have companionship, families, and friends. So I would dare say we're all very fortunate, and we have something meaningful to be thankful for as we reflect on a moment of silence. So please join me in that. Thank you, everyone. First item on the regular agenda is introductions and recognitions. And the first two of these are Chief Ferguson. Chief Ferguson, come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. First topic or agenda item is obviously a bittersweet one. As you know, last month, you all adopted the resolution for the incorporation that was known as Reed Mountain Volunteer Fire and Rescue's, their actual dissolution. So we wanted to take a moment this afternoon to recognize them for their years of service. As you know, the Reed Mountain Fire Station was born out of a joint venture between Botetourt and Roanoke counties back in 1993. And that also drew two communities together, really probably three communities, inclusive of the Bonsack area. But of course, Blue Ridge and Troutville communities kind of came together to help establish some of those original components of the Reed Mountain Fire and Rescue Department. And with us today, we have members dating back as far as the origination of the organization. I know myself coming to Botetourt as a volunteer in late 1997. I got the opportunity and pleasure to work alongside of many of these folks, both as a volunteer, then as a career paramedic, and certainly over the past 6 years as the chief of the department. So really wanted to pause and thank them for their years of service. We did put together just a brief slide there that shows some of their engagement and the community. Really, this station is by far the most visible and prominent in the community. It has always been a very active facility and people stopping by, a lot of community engagement. And as we've seen numerous times throughout the years, the trials and tribulations of maintaining a volunteer membership that can consistently provide the service is always the difficult part in maintaining enough numbers. And this is a very busy station. So I know that these gentlemen and lady behind me, they do not take their decision lightly. I'm sure there were lots of struggles with the dissolution process to just arrive at that. So I applaud their efforts to think logically through that and make the decisions that they felt were best for the community. Just a couple of notes, and then Chief Dickerson, if there's anything you'd like to say, I'd certainly offer that opportunity. In their dissolution process, as I mentioned last month, they did afford for their liquid assets going out to other agencies and to Botetourt County. We have been able to identify the extrication equipment that's necessary for the new fire engine that's on order, and that is in the processes of going through the purchase right now. So all of the funds that they have donated to Botetourt County to go towards service in the Reed Mountain community will be expended in the use of new electric extrication tools for the new fire engine that's on order for that station. So I want to thank them for that gracious donation. That will serve the community for years to come. And we did want to make sure that we formally acknowledge them in a way, and while it's a very simple way, we do not want to erase the walls of Reed Mountain from being what it has been. We just want to carry forward and continue to serve the community in the best way we can. So we developed a plaque honoring the years of service that will go in the facility that will be maintained there in the main hallways, so that the community that enters that building or spends time in that building will always know where the organization started, as well as obviously their remnants of years past in some of their display cases and stuff that we intend to maintain the integrity of that. None of this is to wash away our past. It's really to recognize and honor the men and women that spent over 30 years serving that community and maintain that into the future. So with that, Chief Dickerson.
I think I can speak on behalf of the folks behind me and everyone who served, that we're both grateful and proud of the opportunity to serve the community. We didn't take this decision lightly, as you can imagine. It was a very emotional and very difficult decision for us to close our doors and haul down our flag. It was tough to be the one in the seat when that decision was made, in the chief seat. But we're going to look back on what we did with pride. My time with the department was very short compared to most of the others behind me. We got tremendous support from the community. We couldn't have done what we did do without that support, and we're very grateful for that as well. And most of us intend to stay active in our community in one way or another, and we look forward to working with the department and others in Botetourt County as we spend the rest of our lives here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And then also just as a memento from us, just our mission and our values, we wanted to pass along a challenge point.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chief, you want to read that mission and values?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So our mission statement, which was reaffirmed last November, is to provide prompt and professional services to the citizens and visitors to protect life, property, and the environment. It would be terrible if I had to read that to you, right? Because we're supposed to be committed to the mission. And then, of course, our values, while they've changed a little bit as part of that process, integrity, unity, dedication, innovation to technology is what the innovation stands for, and accountability to one another. So those are our 5 core values.
Well stated and accurately reflected in each one of these people here. Anything else? I'll make a few comments. You done?
No, sir.
Well,
Sure.
thank you for arranging this, and heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you. The chief used the term community service, and certainly that's what this is about. And this is really about the salt of the earth. You know, that's where you all are signed up for. People that voluntarily, without compensation, would go into harm's way or would work countless hours training, countless hours taking care of equipment. I mean, there's so many things to be said for what you all have done. And then finally ending it up with a smooth transition. Very well done. We thank you for your service, and we will remember what you've done for a long time. Thanks each one of you. Thank you, Chief. Any other board members have any? You'd like to say?
Just a couple comments. I remember the first time I came down there to Reed Mountain Station. Somebody had something cooking on the stove that would just smelled fantastic. I thought I was going to have some dinner there. Unfortunately, we didn't. But I got an opportunity to take a look at what the lives you have touched. And if you go through the amount of people that you guys spent time with to train, to save the lives within the area, it's just outstanding. So thank you for the service that you have provided. I'm looking forward to what you guys have put down and put in seed to grow further. So thank you for what you've done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
We're going this way.
All right. So we actually were next up as well. As is normal, sorry. So the second presentation, we just wanted to make you aware, Lunsford speak to it. Obviously, with what we just went over with Reed Mountain, volunteerism and the recruitment and retention of volunteers is an ever-growing challenge across the nation. You all aren't foreign to that. You've heard that many times and see it. But I think it's important to note that it's not all about the numbers. We have some pretty good numbers this year. Actually, Ms. Lunsford reported out last night that we surpassed the number of applicants this year as compared to last year already in terms of volunteer fire and EMS volunteers. But it's about the efforts. We need to make sure that we have the things in place to recruit new folks into the organizations as well as retain the ones that we have. And so I saw an opportunity and forwarded it to Ms. Lunsford, and she put in a nomination for our agency for the Recruitment and Retention Award through the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And we have been for over a decade and a half part of what's known as the Volunteer Combination Officers section. So VCOS is a subset of the International Association of Fire Chiefs that focuses on volunteer and combination departments and development of those, both from an officer perspective, recruitment and retention. We've benefited from numerous free programs here locally, sponsored through VCOS, as well as scholarships to go around the country and attend recruitment and retention programming and other vitally important education to help us better ourselves and grow our department in the right ways. That said, Taylor had the opportunity and I was able to join for a brief period to go down to, they have an annual symposium in the sun. It's what it's called. Their annual symposium is in Clearwater, the third second or third week of November. And actually, this award is sponsored by VFIS, which is the Volunteer Firefighter Insurance Service. It's actually our insurance carrier. Both of the awards that they had sponsored went to Virginia departments. There was a Health and Safety Award that went to Ashburn, and the Recruitment and Retention Award came to us. So I'll let Taylor speak to a little bit about the award and anything you'd like to share.
Yeah. I have a few words to share about it. As you may know, I work with the Community Outreach and Engagement Work Group, and it's comprised of career and volunteer personnel, and they work to bring the tools and empowerment to everyone in our system to accomplish recruitment and retention goals. Statistically, the majority of our recruits come into the system through referrals, and that includes career and volunteer. But I believe it's because of these things. We work to create an environment where people feel valued and heard. We think people first always. Providing a sturdy foundation for new members through our new orientation program this year and training. Giving our people the right tools to recruit, and encouraging our personnel to be empowered when they speak about their experience as a volunteer or career member to those that they are working to recruit. I couldn't be more grateful for our personnel to help work towards best practices for recruitment and retention, and to Botetourt County for championing the cause so that we can create and cultivate the programs we have in place today.
And so these are just a couple of photographic memories. Just the one that probably would not be obvious is the one of Miss Lunsford with the lady in purple. That is actually Dr. Lori Morimel, who is the United States Fire Administrator that is in the process of transitioning out of the seat with the presidential changes. So she had the honor to meet her and get a picture with her there because she presented at the conference and actually named one of her assistants as a successor that's actually a female from the Duck Fire Department in North Carolina. So with all our efforts with Girls Fire Camp and things like that, it just kind of came full circle and was a pretty cool fanfare moment for Taylor to get to meet the United States Fire Administrator in that way. So we're just thankful for the opportunity. I wanted to share that with you.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Chief, and congratulations for yet another recognition.
Thanks.
Next item is Ms. Blackburn Employee Service Awards.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is the time that we will recognize employees for 5th year anniversary years of service. This year, we are recognizing employees for 5 years of service through 35 years of service. The first person is Eric Blankenship in the maintenance department, 5 years. The second person, Robert Hagan, Fire EMS, 5 years. The next person is Kimberly Hartman, Finance, 5 years. The next person, Kayla Jones, Fire EMS, 5 years. The next person, Julie Phillips, Administration, 5 years. Justin Schmidt, Fire EMS, 5 years. Nathan Shields, Fire EMS, 5 years. Chasen Kroom, Technology Services, 10 years. Karen Dunbar, Finance, 10 years. Amy Moyer, Commissioner of the Revenue, 10 years. Nicole Pendleton, Community Development, 10 years. There is another employee being recognized for 10 years, Eddie McDaniel. He is with the Registrar's Office and he is not here today. The next person being recognized, I believe again, is not here. David Dupree, Maintenance Department, 15 years. The next person being recognized, Brian Bauer, Technology Services, 20 years. Jill Deegan with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office is unable to be with us, 20 years. Heather Gilliland, Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, 20 years. Sharon Clark, Clerk of the Circuit Court, 30 years. Greg Hanna, Solid Waste Management, 35 years.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, that's a tribute to a lot of things. Something that the county is doing right here to be able to retain in a job environment like it's been for, in Greg's case, the last 30 years, to maintain employees like this is an accomplishment. And I tried to keep track. I'm not sure I got it, but there are 7 at 5 years, 5 at 10 years, 1 at 15, 3 at 20, 1 at 30, 1 at 35. I guess you could extend that and do a weighted average of some kind, but however that might turn out to be, it's a good reflection on what this county and the administration is doing in terms of hiring and retaining quality employees. And that's what we're doing, is celebrating quality employees like you all. So congratulations to each of you and thank you for your service. And let's see, next we have Julie Phillips to make a presentation. Hi, Julie.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. We're excited to celebrate another employee today. Pleased to introduce you to Stephanie Sparks. She is a full-time buyer in our purchasing department. Stephanie was promoted in late October to an existing full-time vacancy within the department. This vacancy was transitioned from a managerial position to a non-supervisory buyer position, better aligning with the departmental functions and while reducing personnel costs. Stephanie worked as an accounts payable and purchasing clerk for 2 years, supporting the purchasing and finance departments at the same time. So quite some talent there. About 7 years prior to that, she worked in our community development department as a development services technician. And she also has prior experience as a permit technician in Roanoke County and as a human resources and operations manager in retail environments. So she comes loaded with experience, and we're excited to have her still on our team. Earlier this month, Stephanie received her Virginia Contracting Associate Officer certification, VCA certification from the Virginia Institute of Procurement. She succeeded in studying for it and passing this rigorous exam with a high score, despite managing a particularly heavy workload this time of year and learning a new job to boot. So congratulations to Stephanie. She has a strong reputation for being highly responsive and productive, and she proactively seeks out more streamlined solutions and effective ways to serve our community and our employees here in the county. In the past 2 months, she's already introduced numerous improvements, and she's proven herself a very capable asset in the department. So please join me in congratulating Stephanie on her promotion in our purchasing department.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Stephanie. And next is Mr. LaRue.
Yes, would Katie Davis come down, please? Thank you. So as we all know and understand and remember that Tony Zarillo passed away while serving this wonderful county. And so as a result, we had to move forward, and I spoke with his family associated with all of this, so that very respectful way of dealing with everything associated with Tony. And they were in 100% concurrence to what I will be telling you. So as you know, Katie Davis, she joined us in November of 2021 as a senior financial analyst. And then since then, she's demonstrated exceptional initiatives, critical thinking, and strategic approach to improving the county's financial practices. We certainly do appreciate, and we see that every day in activities associated with the finance department. And so one of the things that we did immediately after Tony's demise, untimely demise, is that Katie stepped in and took over in that role in an interim basis so that we could continue on with this magnificent community and serving the people in this county in finance. And so she did not miss a beat in anything that was associated with that. Her leadership and expertise makes her the ideal person to lead our financial team moving forward. And so I took it upon myself to name her the finance director and for Botetourt County, and to be able to actually move forward in that role. And it's much deserved. And everything that she has done has been very, very positive. Katie holds a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from Roanoke College and a Master's of Business Administration from Valdosta State University. She's also completed additional accounting courses through Liberty University, and she's worked for the city of Roanoke for 10 years, holding positions as an accountant, senior accountant, budget management analyst, and senior budget analyst. And what I would ask is that the board and everyone here join me in congratulating Katie for this most deserved promotion that she has accepted. So thank you very much, Katie. Thank you.
Katie, we couldn't be more pleased to
Yes.
have you in this role. Appreciate all the work you've done so far, and we look forward to working with you. Congratulations. And Mr. Morales, there he is.
Thank you, Chairman and the board. I'd love to introduce you all to Braden Snodgrass, local to Botetourt County, from the foul pole at Lloyd Botetourt High School is where his mom grew up. He has a master's in sports administration from Liberty University. And he's joined our team. Sports complex had a vacancy, and Parks and Recreation and the grounds crew also had some needs that Braden helps to kind of be the bridge between our departments. As you know, Parks and Recreation used to be aligned with the maintenance department, working very closely together. When those departments split, we found that there was somewhat of a gap between the people out on the field doing the maintenance and the work to upkeep our programs, and then the people actually hosting our programs. So Braden serves in a very great role, being able to maintain our equipment, ensure that there's great cross communication between departments, and he's out in the field and in the office with us as well, just to make sure that all programs run smoothly. So this is just me introducing you all to Braden as our sports maintenance technician for Parks and Recreation.
Oh,
Very good. Welcome.
thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
You are in a critical role because we're focusing on, as I'm sure you know, focusing on sports and recreation, and we want to upgrade an already good system. So we're glad to have you part of it. We're now up to item number 3, citizen comment period. Any comments from citizens specific to items on the agenda? Any comments? Okay. Consent agenda, I noted earlier, does not include the minutes of November 26th. They will be covered in the January meeting. Any comments on the consent agenda from the board members? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda less the minutes of November 26th. All in favor? Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Consent agenda is approved. And we can move on to finance and accounting. And Ms. Davis, you're back. Approval of transfers and additional appropriations.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Yes, you're going to see me a few times today. For the month of December, there's one transfer request, which is to transfer budgeted funds from multiple departments to the Sheriff's Department for vehicle repairs that were made at the county. Additionally, we have 2 pass-through appropriations. The first is for medical reimbursements for the jail, and the second is to appropriate funds for the Sheriff's Office related to miscellaneous reimbursements, fees, and contract payments. And there are no regular appropriations this month.
Any discussion? Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
For approval of accounts payable and ratification short account payable. Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion carries, and we'll move on to, did I say that wrong? It's transfers. Now we'll move on to accounts payable and short accounts payable.
For the month of December, similar to October, because we have an earlier board meeting this month also, we only had one accounts payable run. The other that will occur in December, you'll see for January's meeting to ratify. So for December, total expenditures being requested for approval are $981,064.23. Again, it's a little bit lower because it only includes one check run. Notable disbursements for the month included $52,500 to our independent auditors related to our financial reporting, auditing of our financial reporting, $98,000 for a Ford truck for emergency communications, and $51,818 for the purchase of a new van, as you probably recall from last month, adding to that program. Any questions I can answer at this time?
There's no questions. I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Katie.
you.
And Chief Ferguson, one more time.
Good afternoon again. The agenda item before you at this time is the consideration to reappropriate and transfer funds to the Fire and EMS Capital Reserve Fund. Typically, this is an action that's taken each October, but then the cadence of that changed just slightly this year. In July, Mr. Zarella and I had taken care of a portion of the process, but this is the remaining portion of the process that has to occur. In essence, in 2019, the Fire and EMS Capital Reserve Fund was established as a means of taking those revenues above the 1.2 million expected from cost recovery and repurposing those into a designated fund balance for fire and EMS capital needs. That program has been able to yield funds to help support the purchase of at least 1.5 of the tanker trucks that have been purchased over the past couple of years, and really has just been that continual pool where vehicles that we sell, any yield we receive from the disposition of used fire and EMS apparatus would go there, as well as anything above that expected 1.2 million in revenues. Thankfully, this year for FY24, once that year closed and all was assessed, we were at 1.576 million, which yields 376,058 available to be considered to go into the fund. In July, as part of that process, you all had already transitioned the balance from last year, which was that 189,673 over into the Capital Reserve Fund. And we're requesting that you appropriate this additional 376,058 to that fund so that we would have, in essence, a little over $500,000. This would ultimately help take care of apparatus that are on order. And I'll answer any questions on this, and I'll give you just a little nugget further than that, so you have a little additional peace of mind and other ways we're trying to afford for that without the general fund. Any questions?
All right, what action are we being asked for here?
To appropriate the 376,058 received in excess for FY24 EMS cost recovery into the Fire and EMS Capital Reserve Fund 310.
Any questions for the chief?
No questions. I move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
2 seconds. Better.
We good?
Good.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. And just, I wanted to share this with you as to not confuse that action. In looking at our Department of Fire programs, aid to locality funds, which we have been reserving each year since FY19 to help afford for the purchase of fire apparatus that are on order. As of this morning, we have $784,034 there as well. So when you add that up between the action you all just took and that puts us at 1.3, just shy of 1.4 million. And there are other funds that we've identified. Again, I just want to make sure that you know that I'm acknowledging that there's a looming amount of apparatus that will show up in calendar year 25. We are doing everything that we can to find funding mechanisms that otherwise would have already went to something else. Because if you recall, prior to FY19, the aid to locality funds were just cut up and divided amongst the volunteer agencies, and each got whatever they needed in small sums. But this keeping it collective and reoccurring Fire and EMS Capital Reserve Fund efforts yields the benefits at the end of the day. So that's the only reason I bring that up and wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we have a public hearing in about 3 minutes. And we have the audit. You'll need about 10 or 15 minutes, won't you, Corbin?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and begin on, we're only a few minutes early on the public hearing. Item number 10, consideration of amendment of the county budget to provide for rollover funds appropriated but not spent in fiscal year 2024 for projects that will continue into fiscal year 2025. This is a annual routine matter. Katie?
Good afternoon again. As you mentioned, this is routine. We're looking to reappropriate essentially unused funds from the FY24 budget year to 25 for the same purpose that they were already originally approved for by code. Given the amount, as it exceeds 1% of our budget, we do have to have a public hearing in order to move forward with that. Are there any questions?
Questions from board members before I open the hearing? I'll open the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the public? Close the public hearing and open the matter for discussion among board members. Any discussion, comments? Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
And just to clarify, that's approve the amendment to the county budget for the rollover funds. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
And now let's call on BDOT. Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me again this month. As far as the yearly resurfacing contracts, they are done for the year. We'll have new contracts out early next year. For the traffic engineering work orders, the first two I discussed shortly last month, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me at the end. The Gibson Lane work order, we're still waiting on a response from traffic engineering. And for the tree bark work order, it was from a citizen who wanted us to post an unpaved road, which we generally do not do. What we did is have traffic engineering review it, and we're going to place some curve warning signs and maybe some reduced speed warning signs. And she seemed pretty satisfied with that. As far as as far as land use and land development reviews, there are several on the list there that are going through our process for review or approval. We issued 10 permits last month. As far as residency projects, the project on 220 out here in front still moving along. I saw they were paving one of the U-turn movements today, so they're moving along with it. I don't know if they're going to meet that mid-December reopen yet, but like I said, they're working on it pretty hard as long as they have temperatures to actually pave. The Spruce Circle on there, it was actually paved on Saturday, so that was a repair that we've been trying to make for the last few months due to a water leak and subsurface water issues. So that one was completed. As far as area headquarter in-house projects, I mean, this time of year, we're just trying to maintain just normal gravel roads, getting prepared for winter. We may actually do a little bit of like mowing or trimming for sight distance, but not too much given the temperatures. And aside from that, we'll do pothole repair and again, just trying to get ready for some of the winter weather and just hoping if we're ready for it, it won't come. As far as the surface treatment contract for Ms. White, that one is on the street for the three roll rustics that we have. We're hoping for that to be open to bids on January 3rd. We're crossing our fingers for more bids this time since there was none last time. And then we'll have to figure out what we do after that if we do not get any bids. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Let's go in order here. Blue Ridge, anything?
I just want to thank you for the traffic engineering studies for the 2 locations for me. Very good job. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Council's good.
Awesome.
We're good.
A couple of thank yous. Number one is the 220, trying to get that repaved. That was fantastic. A lot better. The other question that I have would be in Highland Manor. Have we found the culprit of the problem for that?
The issue in the cul-de-sac, we believe it was a utility leak. I don't recall exactly how it worked out, but we were waiting on, I think, what is it, the Aqua, that has the water in there to make some repairs. Robin may know more than me about where it stands today, but my understanding was we did identify it and they were going to make some repairs. We were going to kind of help out and assist a little bit, but am I missing anything, Robin? Yeah, we can follow up with them.
Okay. And Hunter's Green, I know we're waiting for that bid too.
Yes, it's in contracts. We wouldn't expect bids for those to be back probably till late January, early February, and then they get awarded a little later. And generally they start sometime in March, but it could be summer, early fall before they actually get to that, since that'll be a pretty extensive project that'll impact the whole neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
So 2 questions from Amsterdam. One shows up about in the middle of your agenda. This is the talk of the town, but I haven't heard much about it lately. The Wawa, do you know anything more about that other than what's listed here?
Other than it's just under reviews, my understanding is it's like I said, we just had the first review comments. We sent them to Botetourt County on December 3rd, so we're just waiting on a resubmittal.
Okay. Kind of a similar thing. There's a statement in your report at the bottom of page 2, residency and VDOT projects, work being performed in the median area of Route 220. You're talking about right out here?
This project, yes, the one that's underway right now here at International Parkway and Ashley Way.
So what's the end game on that? Do you know offhand?
The end game is for it to be done sometime mid next year, but like I said, it was due to be reopened and the permanent lane closure removed last month, but they've had some weather issues and delays. We've been assisting them however we can with signage and some other things because they're kind of running over on some of their bid items. So we're helping as much as we can from a residency standpoint, but they still have to accomplish the work. Like I said, today when I drove through, they were paving one of the U-turns. So they're moving closer to that. They had to get those done before they could reopen those 2 inside lanes. Okay. So I don't have a date, but it said mid-December, but I'm not sure if the construction manager actually updated that recently or not, but I can find out more.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to to Corbin Stone's presentation of our 2023-2024 county audit. Welcome, Mr. Stone.
Chairman, board members, thanks for having me here. I'll get the presentation pulled up. You all have a copy of it in front of you. The audit report is actually 173 pages long, so I'm not going to go through that document. We're going to go over the cliff notes today. And really pleased with after losing Tony, how other staff stepped up. Katie did a great job closing out the audit in his absence. And I told her earlier, I really didn't expect to be presenting this in December.
Let me just ask, can y'all hear in the back? Okay, can you?
You'll get closer.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just very pleased that we're able to present in December. Like I said, Katie did a great job of closing out closing the books and getting the audit finalized, as did the treasurer's office. They did a wonderful job for you. So you did receive what we call an unqualified or unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which means we believe the financial statements are materially correct. You all have the handout in front of you, but it's also on the screen behind you. It's just the small cliff notes, if you will, to the audit. I'll come and kind of scroll down. On page 1, you're going to see kind of the key data from the audit report. The general fund balance into the year. Okay. The general fund balance ended the year just under $72 million, up from just under $71 million in the prior year. Keep in mind, fund balance includes any debt proceeds. So you issued debt back in 22, and that raises up your fund balance. Of course, you're going to spend it over time. You haven't spent most of that money yet. So that does kind of drive up the fund balance. And you can see in this 10 years worth of data, you see a big jump in 22 in fund balance, and that's why. You can see then below that, the components of fund balance, and that unrestricted or unassigned fund balance dropped a little bit this year from 40 million to 33 or just under $34 million. But I will point out that you did move about $6 million up to committed or assigned, which is at the discretion of the board to set aside for capital projects and capital outlays. So did the unassigned fund balance really drop? Not really. You just moved a portion of it to committed and assigned, which you can change that at any point in time. The other thing I'll point out here is you can see that jump in the restricted and committed funds is primarily the debt that was issued back in 22. And you got really good interest rates on that debt. But the federal government does not allow you to earn more interest on debt proceeds than what you're paying back on that same debt. So you are now in something we call arbitrage, which means you're actually earning slightly more interest income on the debt than what you're paying back on the debt. And the federal government says you got to pay that money to them. So at a 5-year anniversary date of the issuance, you'll be doing an arbitrage rebate calculation, and you'll have to return some of that excess interest to the federal government. We haven't had arbitrage in a long time. The timing of the issuance was pretty good. That the fact that you're creating arbitrage interest today. I would just say, as you have allowable expenditures to draw down that money, you want to get it out of the trustees' hands so it's no longer creating any arbitrage interest that you might have to rebate. Further down the page, you see long-term obligations. Governmental activities, which is the county and the school board, ended the year at about $115 million, down slightly from the prior year of $118 million. That's going to include all debt of the county, including pension obligations, which the county actually has a pension surplus right now, I think of about $600,000 or $700,000. But that includes all obligations of the county, $115 million, post-employment benefit obligations as well. Below that, we see governmental activities. That's full accrual accounting. What we want to see in that is just a slight growth in that unrestricted balance, and that's what we have. In full accrual, we're taking all assets of the county, all the buildings you own, all the cars that you own, and then we're subtracting off all the liabilities. That's pension obligations. That's any debt that you owe, to come back to what the net position of the county is. And that's our best guess. If you were to go out of business today, what would you be worth? About $75 million. Keep in mind that those are depreciated values of assets, so the true value could be slightly higher. Debt per capita, or I should say total long-term obligations per capita. This includes pension liabilities at the school board and that sort of thing. Ended the year at 3,462. That compares to a state average last year of 6,053. So you're well below the state average in terms of debt per capita. I will say that the Northern Virginia localities tend to drive this number slightly higher because they just have a larger tax base or a stronger tax base with which to repay debt. Not a lot. I would say if we looked at your peers, you would probably expect to see a range of $4,000 to $5,000 in debt per capita. The next page, I'm just graphing some of this information out. I always like to look at the difference between the long-term obligations, basically what you owe, and what your unassigned fund balance is. I've included committed this year down at the bottom. You can see that green line because we just had a shift. We really just moved money from this unassigned down to committed this year. So I thought I'd include that this year to show you. So long-term obligations are going down. Fund balance is trending up. It dropped this year, but again, it's because we moved some money to committed. Unrestricted net position at the end of the year, you can see that's grown to 35 million. That's largely been driven by ARPA funds. That was kind of, a one-time shot in the arm, if you will. So you did get a nice jump there in 23, and you've kept it in 24. Major revenue sources. General property tax is by far your largest revenue source. The other thing that make note of is this kind of red line at the bottom, other local taxes, meals tax, sales tax, lodging tax, has been increasing pretty well over the last several years. Of course, inflation can drive that higher because those are taxes based on how much you spend. If you have to spend more for the same thing, then your taxes go up as well. Commonwealth aid is up slightly from a few years ago. And then federal aid, kind of sporadic with ARPA funds. We don't recognize that as revenue until you have an allowable expense. So we don't necessarily recognize it when you receive it. We show it as a liability due back to the federal government until you spend it. Functional expenditures, public safety and education are the two large ones. Everybody else together doesn't add up to a whole lot. But you have considerable growth in both of those. And I'll show you a school board graph in just a second to give you an idea of what's going on really with every school system in the state. We did have quite a bit of capital outlay this year in public safety. And the last few years has actually had a lot of capital outlay, and that's driving those costs a little bit higher. This is real interesting to me because a couple of years ago I showed you this graph. This is where your money's coming from in 24. You can see 55% of your money was coming from other local taxes. Look at this, almost between roughly 8.5% came from the federal government. If we compared that to where you were 10 years ago, you see 60% of your revenue came from local taxes, or 61%, and 1.64 came from the federal government. So I expect we're going to return to a scenario more like this here in the next couple of years. And in fact, I would not be surprised if we don't see those local taxes covering even greater percentage or representing a larger percentage of your overall revenue pie. Local tax assessments, we had a big jump in personal property. I'm on page 8, a big jump in personal property. It slowed down a little bit in 2024. Used car prices, really shot up. They seem to be moderating a little bit. Real estate, we show that assessment. Those assessed values at 1/10 of the actual assessment, because otherwise it would be hard to get all these lines on the same page. You can see when the last reassessment took place, and then I'm guessing you've got one in the not too distant future, and would expect to see another jump when that happens. This is a graph that can really tell us a lot. And the reason I go back to 2008 for you here is so you can see the impact of the stimulus money that came out after the Great Recession. I'm on page 9. You see, here's where this federal money came to the school board in 2010, really kind of trickled out through 11 and 12. At the same time, we had a drop in state aid. We had a slight drop in local aid, and then those two went up as this federal revenue dropped back down to the levels it had been back in 2008. And you can see it continued there. It really didn't grow. Federal aid was pretty stagnant for school boards, and it could be this school board or pretty much any school board in the state. Was pretty stagnant after the Great Recession, after that money ran out. Then we've got another spike with the COVID or the ARPA funds, ESSER funds that they received. Really starting in 21, significant growth there, even through 24. And so you can guess what I'm going to tell you is that we do expect that to normalize going forward. And it's a bit of a larger drop back down to where they were back in 2019, 2020 than it was back in 2013. So we would expect that to normalize. We've still had growth in state aid and local aid. So this has potential here to really put a burden on local governments. That being said, you have a healthy fund balance. So that's what we want to see, so you don't have a knee-jerk reaction of having to immediately go out and raise revenue for that, if you indeed move that in that direction. The next couple pages, pages 10 and 11, were our management or audit recommendations for the year. Nothing major here. We'll point out, and this isn't just for the school board, but for any reimbursement-based grant, we want to get that money into the county's bank account as quickly as possible. Interest rates are a little bit higher now. So that to the extent we can get that money sooner, we can get it in the bank and you can earn more interest on it. I'm not going to go over all those. Nothing major there, like I said. The next few pages, pages 12 and 13, the Virginia retirement system requires us to look into your account and make sure that all the people the employees that should be getting a contribution for your VRS are in there. The ones that shouldn't be have been taken out. So we do testing. We don't look at every single employee. We'll do a test of about 10% of the population, typically, for additions and deletions within VRS. We didn't have any issues. We found the county and the school board appear to have good processes in place to add people to the retirement system and take them out. I can tell you what prompted this was a locality, and I've probably told you before, that left somebody and continued to make contributions for them. And ultimately, they retired with 30 years of service, even though they had only worked about 5. So that's the reason behind this, is to make sure that people are being added to and taken out of the system in a timely manner. We have a required letter to those charged with governance. It starts on page 14. This is required that we tell you about the major estimates in the financial statements. We ultimately don't know what your pension liabilities are going to wind up being because we don't know how long people are going to be in VRS once they retire. It's a projection of what that liability is going to be, then discount it back to today's dollars. So we do tell you about the major estimates in the financial statements, just to make sure you understand those are subject to change. Certainly, if the stock market goes down, that VRS liability will go up for sure. But other than that, you get the boilerplate letter. We didn't have any issues with the audit. And like I said, the audit went very well. We do include copies of the recommended journal entries from the audit behind it. I'm sure you don't want to go through all of those, but we include just in case you do have a question. I'm going to keep scrolling through those. I'll tell you, some of those entries are actually proposed by the county. I know you had a grant related to Lumos that you were getting from the state and then passing through to the EDA, and then they passed it through to Lumos. And we were waiting on information from them so we could post that receivable and liability. That's actually one of the larger entries there. Finally, we have an appendix which just shows you the new accounting standards that are coming out over the next couple of years that Katie will have to deal with in future reports. So the financial report may be 176 pages in a few years, or 180, or maybe even 200. Nothing major here. We do have a rewrite of the financial reporting model coming out in a couple of years, which is going to put a pretty big burden back on the county. You'll have to explain in the bound document major changes to your budget. So not just that the actual numbers, we're not just going to present the actual numbers. We're going to show the budget, the changes to the budget during the year, and then there's going to have to be an explanation as to why, in a really an effort to gain more transparency. That may take you over 200 pages by the time it's over with. But the ones right now that are out there and you're going to be implementing in the next couple of years aren't too bad. And I'll stop there. Like I said, really pleased with the way the county financially where you are, and then also the way staff came together to help close out the audit. It's quite a task. When you look at this document, it's a lot of technical information in it, and to pull together all that information is quite a task. So the county did a great job. So I'll stop there and answer any questions.
Well, thank you as always, Corbin, for a great report. Questions, board members? I've got a couple, and some of this goes to a simple fact that I happen to be a little colorblind.
Oh, okay.
So these two in succession pie charts on revenue percentages.
Yes, sir.
So we're headed in the right direction, it looks like. So from 2015 to 2024, we've reduced our reliance on general property taxes considerably.
Correct.
That includes all property taxes, right? Residential and.
Yes, yes, that's all property taxes. The caveat to that is you had this surge of federal funds that kind of, that made up 8% of your, almost 8.5% of your budget, right at 8.5% in 24. So that kind of took the place. So if you take that out, then your reliance, local property taxes would have been a greater percentage.
Okay. Then what went, and it's because I can't tell the colors, what went from 1.64 to 8.69?
The federal aid.
That was federal.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the next one adjacent to that went from 18.8 to 13.7.
Yeah, permits, privilege, that building permits, privilege fees, and regulatory licenses. It could be you just had a large project going on back in 2015 that drove that higher. I can't remember.
So no cautionary.
I'm sorry. That's Commonwealth aid. They happen to be the same color. Maybe I'm a little colorblind too, but Commonwealth aid went from 18% in 15 down to 14% in 24. I'm sorry.
Say that one again. Say that again.
It was the aid from the Commonwealth dropped from 18% back in 2015 to 13.6% in 2024. And again, that's just a percentage of your total revenue for that year was from the Commonwealth. It doesn't mean it necessarily dropped. It just means that other revenues were growing at a faster pace.
Okay, so overall, no cautionary words for us.
Sure. I mean, we've had a major infusion of federal dollars at the school board and the county. You've got a healthy fund balance. That money's going away. It was a one-time shot for both groups. So what comes, 3, 4, 5 years from now, trying to predict how that's all going to play out. I don't have any idea, but we do know it was a one-time shot. Now your fund balance is healthy. So you're in a position that you can absorb, a lot better than most. If we have a downturn, you're in a better position than most to kind of absorb that. And avoid a knee-jerk reaction of having to immediately go out and raise taxes. So you'll have time to make those decisions. That's what you want.
Okay. Anything from board members? Thank you, Corbin.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. My contact information is on the first page of the handout. So if you do have any questions, just give me a call or send me an email. I'm happy to help you any way I can. Thanks.
Thank you.
We can move forward to item number 11, public hearing scheduled at 3 o'clock. This is Ms. Pendleton as consideration of a text amendment to Chapter 25 zoning of the Botetourt County Code in the traditional neighborhood district. These amendments would amend the following in the T&D use district. Only these following: residential lot and building requirements for duplexes, rear yard setbacks for multifamily dwellings, dimensions and parking standards for streets, alleys, paths, and blocks for mixed residential streets and mixed residential lanes and entry boulevards. And we authorized this, I believe, back in October to go to the planning commission. And now we're back to the public hearing. Hello, Jonathan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. With all due respect to Mr. Stone, who may be gone now, I was trying to figure out what was drier, a zoning text amendment or a county audit. I'm sorry you went from the audit to the text amendment because I think it's probably drier on this end. So please bear with me while I talk to you about the ins and outs of zoning this afternoon. Before you is a proposed amendment to the traditional neighborhood district of the Botetourt County Zoning Code as the legal advertisement states. The Botetourt County Board of Supervisors have authorized consideration of text amendments to Chapter 25 zoning of the Botetourt County Code and the traditional neighborhood district that would amend the following in the T&D use district only: residential lot and building requirements for duplexes, rear yard setbacks for multifamily dwellings, dimensions and parking standards for streets, alleys, paths, and blocks for mixed residential streets, mixed residential lanes, and entry boulevards. Before we get too far into this today, I wanted to provide some context for you all for the requested amendment. First, this is an owner-initiated text amendment impacting only property that is zoned T&D, traditional neighborhood design. There are two developments in Botetourt County with that zoning designation currently. That is the Harvested Blue Ridge development off 220 alternate and the Daleville Town Center. Second, these amendments are requested to realize the vision of a pedestrian-friendly mixed housing type and affordable T&D. Third, the complexity of these types of developments tend to lend themselves to requiring amendments to the zoning ordinance as planning and development occurs. For example, approval of the Harvest development required some zoning text amendments, even to get the rezoning done. Additionally, as time has gone on with the Daleville Town Center project, there's been several text amendments that have occurred with that one as well over the years as development has occurred. And finally, just as a reminder to you all and everyone in the crowd, the Harvested Blue Ridge rezoning was approved back in July of 2023, and we've been working with them as they have submitted some of their site plans and grading plans. So as we get into the actual depth of the proposed text amendments here, I wanted to call attention briefly to the number of units proposed in the master plan of the Harvest, which is just north of 400 units. The proposed amendments will only impact the duplex lots, which are 24 total of the over 400 units, and the single family attached lots, which are nearly 100. I'll get into what those proposed changes look like in just a moment. The second overarching item I'd like to draw attention to is the proposed street layout shown here on your screen. The proposed amendments are really only related to the neighborhood center boulevard, which is the bottom left of your screen is the entrance into the development, and the mixed residential street lanes. A note to remember as well, despite the fact that I am using the plan here for the Harvested Blue Ridge, the proposed text amendments here, if passed, would apply to all developments in the traditional neighborhood district. So I'm using these images here just because it's freshest, but it would also apply to anything else zoned T&D now or into the future. All right, so there are four real action items here for the zoning text amendments. The first one here is to reduce the minimum lot size for duplexes from 8,000 feet to 4,400 square feet. I apologize here for the screen in front of you. It says 4,000, but it is 4,400 square feet, not 4,000. The intention behind this is to ensure that duplexes that really resemble single-family homes from the street in size and design do not clash with single-family homes that may be adjacent to them. So what we mean by that, currently duplexes are required to have 8,000 square foot lots. If you do an 8,000 square foot lot next to a bunch of 4,000 square foot lots, that's going to make lots that have wide side yards and will interrupt kind of the flow as one is traveling down the lane. If you have two single family dwellings and then a duplex lot right next to it, it's going to appear wider. The block's going to look a little longer and it's going to stick out a little bit more, which is not the intent of the traditional neighborhood design. If you reduce it down to 4,400 square feet, it's not going to make the actual structure smaller. It's just going to mean that more of the lot is taken up by the structure, which is part of the intent of the traditional neighborhood design districts, which is intended to have streets that are fronted by homes rather than empty space. The next one here is to reduce rear setbacks for single family attached dwellings in the T&D districts. There are only two residential types that have a 25-foot setback. That's single family attached and multifamily residential. That's a little odd that we would have included single family attached in the same setbacks as the multifamily. The intent here is, again, to correct something that would stick out like a sore thumb as you go into the neighborhood. By reducing from 25 to 6 foot, you would prevent long driveways that are serviced off of alleyways, and you actually encourage more of that residential feel. The development at Harvested Blue Ridge is also quite hilly, as I'm sure you all know. part of the intent here is to design those streets where you can park under townhomes, utilizing the existing layout of the land more than what you would be able to or you would be forced to with 25 feet. So that the intent there is largely to keep that neighborhood feel that makes the townhomes or duplexes look like single family dwellings. That way nothing kind of stands out more so than just walking down the street. All right, the third item here is to create a new street type in the traditional neighborhood districts. This would create the entry boulevard street type in TNDs. That would impact the entrance into the TND. The essential point here is to create a new street type that removes the requirement for having both sides of parking on either lane to just having no parking on either lane. The intent here is to create a more narrow street, which slows the movement of traffic just by nature of the development and design of the street itself, and to remove some opportunities for pedestrians to come in contact with moving vehicles. This is really intended to provide a nice transition from 220 alternate or main road into a traditional neighborhood development, to really indicate to the mind that you are in a neighborhood, that you are into a new place, and that you should be slowing down a little bit more. Last but not least, is to reduce the parking requirements for mixed residential streets and lanes in TND zones. So currently you have mixed residential streets that require parking on two sides. The proposed is to reduce that to including parking on one side only. It seems like we might be, with these amendments, completely removing a lot of parking requirements. That's not the case. Each individual use will still require the same amount of parking that's required in the ordinance. This just makes sure that parking that's required by the code is not unused parking. So we're not requiring a developer to put in parking in areas that people aren't intended to park in anyways, and still guaranteeing that through the site plan review and approval process, that parking will be met by nature of those uses. So a single family dwelling will still require 2 parking spots. They have to be either on street directly abutting that use or off street in a driveway or a garage. So the parking requirement's not going to go away. It just makes it so we don't arbitrarily put 2 rows of parking on either side of a street that otherwise would not really need that parking. We don't want to include wide pieces of asphalt that would encourage drivers to drive fast or make pedestrians feel a little less comfortable walking down the streets. So that's the overarching intent behind those 2 action items there. All right, so the request for you all today is to either approve or deny the text amendments. I would ignore the screen here. This is actually the one for the Planning Commission to send to you all. They did vote to recommend approval of these to you all in a 5-0 vote. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Representatives of the Harvest at Blue Ridge are here today and do have a presentation if you'd like to hear from them. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions you may have, and I appreciate your time.
Board member questions? These proposed changes, they have their origins with the developer's landscape architect, basically. Is that where they came out?
Yes, sir. So as you remember, we had, I think it was two weeks of design charrettes that developed that master plan that came before you all for the rezoning and everything, and the text amendments that were sought then. As design has gone on, a couple things popped out with the design and then our actual review that generated these text amendments. So it was from the applicant, from the developers of the Harvest at Blue Ridge that are seeking this amendment. When you all authorized that, staff worked with the actual applicants themselves and crafted something that would be suitable for our ordinance.
So if you can go back to one of your earlier slides where you kind of characterized T&Ds and how these proposed changes come out. You had 4 or 5 bullet points.
Yes.
You can go back to that because I think that's really relevant.
This one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of speaks to the nature of the beast, so that you can come up with what really looks good on paper early on, but then when you begin nailing it down, there's ways to improve it. And that's kind of what this is all about, really.
Yeah, it's not unusual to see that happen with
Yeah.
large scale developments, even sometimes commercial developments, when they get into the site itself and really start actually hammering out the details of the design with the grading plans, the construction drawings and all that. You realize that, oh, this might not work like we want it to work. And then the master plan is not in tune with the ordinance. And so, to make that actual plan work as it was envisioned, as you all approved it, sometimes you have to go back to the text and actually look at what is required and see if some changes can be made there.
Same thing happened with Danville Town Center years ago.
I believe it's happened since I've been here in the last 3 years. I think we had a text amendment come up a few months ago about the edge and the core and workplace and all that. So it does happen semi-frequently, I suppose. And I think some of the intent with traditional neighborhood designs is to be a little more flexible with what might come to the market and what might be proposed there. See if we can't fix the ordinance or at least amend the ordinance to kind of accommodate some new use. That'd be great for the community.
So summarizing this, you have four proposed changes: lot size, rear setback, and so on, but you only are seeking one motion.
Yes, I believe the motion is for all four. I think if you'd like to take them one by one, you can. It's entirely up to you all.
Well, I'll ask for the board's pleasure on that. You want to take them all together?
Yeah, that'd be good. That's fine.
Seems to me that's the way to do it. Okay. Okay, so do the board members have any questions? Are we ready to consider the issue?
We need to have the public hearing.
We need to do the public hearing. Any questions from the board members before I open the public hearing?
No.
Public hearing's open. Questions from board member or from the public, comments from the public. Close the public hearing. Now I can ask the board. Mr. Scott Horn, you proposed one motion for all four. I tend to agree with that. Yeah, you can go with that. Okay. I'll ask for a motion on the matter before us.
I'll move the motion.
Second. Been moved and seconded that we approve all four proposed amendments to the TND, ranging from lot size to rear setbacks to entry boulevard parking. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries, and we've got the amendments. Thank you, Jonathan. Let's go to item number 12, courthouse construction project award. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman, board members. I'm here to request to award Jamerson Lewis the general construction contract for Botetourt County Circuit Courthouse Project Package B to complete the construction provided in the IFB or an invitation for bids for the sum of $35,787,580 for the duration of within 870 days from the effective date of the notice to proceed. The projected notice to proceed is January 20th, 2025. To give you a little, and the 870 days would end up being approximately July 1st of 2027. It's 29 months or basically 30 months of construction. To give you a project summary or the history of the project, Botetourt County through its Board of Supervisors determined that it was in need of a new circuit courthouse. The Botetourt County Circuit Courthouse has been under construction since 2022. The construction was originally to be bid out in two separate packages, Packages A and Package B, with Package B covered primarily in site work, setting up temporary courtroom space, judges' chambers, and circuit court clerk's offices, has ended and is no longer in effect. On June 9th, 2023, the county pre-qualified 4 general contractors to bid on the Botetourt County Circuit Courthouse Project Package B. On October 21st, 2024,
The county posted and advertised an invitation for bids, or an IFB, for the 4 pre-qualified construction general contractors for 36 days that ended on November 26, 2024. On November 26, 2024, the county unsealed the bids and subsequently, with the assistance of the architect, tabulated and verified the bids. The bids were received. The county received the 2 following bids. 2 of the 4 GCs put in bids. Avis Construction's bid was $37,969,692 with days to complete 1,150 days. Jamerson Lewis Construction's bid was $35,787,580 with days to complete of 870 days. FYI, the AE's estimate for the construction was $39,626,000. On December 6th, the county issued a notice of intent of award to Jamerson Lewis Construction as the apparent low responsive pre-qualified bidder in accordance with the county's procedures for competitive sealed bidding for construction. Jamerson Lewis Inc. has complied with the requirements of the notice to award. So I ask you to award Jamerson Lewis the construction contract for the Botetourt County Circuit Courthouse. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Evans?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, there's a 280-day difference there. Did they give you a reasoning why that 280 days?
So, yes, I asked Jamerson Lewis what they thought they could do to, how they came up with a much faster project, a much shorter time project. And they basically listed out where they thought they could have a larger crew with more different parts of the project operating at the same time. And there is certainly room to do that. There's a large parking lot that has to be built, buildings that have to be demolished, and they really thought that they could approach it with the buildings being demolished and at the same time getting the courthouse ready to be demoed currently. And that's also the difference for the bid, because the length of time for Avis was considerably longer.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any action on this. Thank you for your report, Mr. Evans. Do we?
We have to award.
The award.
Say again.
I think we have to award the contract.
Oh, we
Yes,
have
sir.
to
Yeah,
award.
there's a resolution for the award and delivery of our signatures for it and the notice to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other questions, I would like to award the construction general contract for Botetourt County through a courthouse package B in accordance with the attached resolution.
I'll second.
And moved and seconded that we approve the award as presented by Mr. Evans. Is there discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Evans, thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Looking forward to this.
We'll move on to number 13, FY 2026 budget presentation.
Good afternoon again. I told you you'd be seeing a lot of me today. So Mr. Chairman and members of the board, what I have for you today is a brief presentation on really the start of the budget process for 2026. So what we have here is our planned budget calendar. It does look a little bit different than it has in years past. Obviously, we are starting out earlier. We're adding some additional information sharing with you guys and the public and hoping to finish sooner. You can see right now we're really at the beginning, sort of your first look at the budget. And I do want to emphasize there has been no review at this time. This is just, again, requested. So next month, you'll be able to see the recommendations of the budget task force once they've completed their review. followed by the county administrator's recommended budget in February. After that, there will be a few budget subcommittee sessions in early March, followed by those recommendations being transmitted to the rest of the board later in March. At the end of March, we hope to have the advertised budget, followed by a public hearing with a adoption planned in April. I do want to emphasize as well that this is our planned calendar. It is subject to change. Okay, for the 2026 budget year, all departments were given some guidance in which to follow and how to structure their budget requests. First and foremost, there was a maximum 3% increase for non-personnel operating requests. Requests should also be in alignment with existing board priorities and projects. Additionally, as the board has requested, there is prioritization given to those requests that support the expansion of services and facilities for Parks and Recreation. And finally, a focus on employee recruitment and retention. Here's a snapshot of the expenditure request. The total increase at this point in time, as compared with the current year's adopted budget, is approximately 10 million or 11%. Again, we are at the start of the process. This has gone through no formal review at this time. The biggest categorical increases are in capital projects with a 4.5 million increase. We'll look at a little more detail on that on the next slide. Followed by public safety and non-departmental, which are both increasing by approximately 2 million. The non-departmental component, which does have a larger percentage increase as well, that is primarily placeholder funds for anticipated debt issuance for some projects that we'll discuss. I also want to note that the school contribution at this time is level with last year. That is simply because we have not yet received requests from them and obviously reflects no action by the board. So at this point in time, it's just a placeholder. It's level funding with last year. Next up, we have the capital improvement plan. So taking a closer look at this, what you have in that first column is the figures that we had planned as part of the CIP document that was adopted in FY25. Again, it was just for planning purposes. Then the second column is what was actually requested for 2026. Some of these requests are actually new items, and some of them are a revision of previously anticipated costs and projects. The biggest increase here is for fire and EMS, which accounts for 1.2 million of that increase. And I also want to note that there are some larger projects that are not included in these totals. Those are being considered for financing or alternate funding, and that's why you don't see them reflected here, but are part of the discussion. So as you know, we always do a longer outlook for capital. Obviously, any commitments you make in a year can have impacts following. These projects don't typically start and finish in the course of 1 year. So what you have here is the next 4 years of requests based on what was requested for the 2026 year. You can see they're pretty level, about 5 million in 27, 6 million in 28, and 5 million in 29. Obviously in FY30 that goes up quite a bit. That is pretty far out there, but a big chunk of that is a library request. I do also want to add that new for this year, we have gathered more information to have more of a 10-year outlook. We've collected financial data for 5 years, but we have collected additional information, excuse me, for 10 years to have a longer outlook on what might be coming down for us. Here we have a snapshot of the preliminary revenue figures, just to help gauge how much money we might have to work with for FY '26. Current projections show a $2.3 million increase or 2.5%, primarily from local revenue. State revenues are mostly level with prior year at this time. That's just due to timing. We absolutely expect those will change. And really, you'll see a lot of movement through this as we move through the process. I do want to point out, just to eliminate any confusion, you saw in Corbin's presentation, he talked about federal funding, how we have received quite a bit of that the last 2 years, and that's going to be falling off. I just want to point out that he was showing actual revenue. What I'm talking about here is budgeted. That those figures were not included in last year's budget because they were expected to be fully paid in this calendar year. So that's why there's not much of a dramatic change on the federal side. So currently, the gap between our forecasted revenues and requested expenditures is 5.7 million. I want to stress that that is not uncommon at this point and is not at all going to be how we conclude the process. So this is going to be closed with adjustments on both the revenue side and expenditure side. I would expect some up and down movements on each side as we move through the process, refine our information till we get to the end. And again, this will move through our review process, which looks like this. So starting off, the first formal review stage is with the budget task force. This is made up of members, internal members of the organization, and does include representatives from elected offices as well. They will be the group that first looks at the budget, and they do look at it in a very detailed fashion. Once they have concluded, their recommendations are sent to the county administrator. County administrator does do an independent review, but does also consider those recommendations that were put forward by the budget task force. Once that's complete, that is sent to the budget subcommittee. This is sort of the final review stage. Amendments are made, although obviously the board can still make changes after this time, but this will sort of set the recommended budget that moves forward to the board. And I do want to point out, this is typically when we will decide funding to the schools. That's not really talked about much in the earlier stages. This is really the stage in which that occurs. So just to show you what that looked like last year, we have a little graph showing how we moved through the budget process and how those totals changed.
Can we go back to the prior, yeah, that one? Just as a matter of clarification, budget task force, and this is maybe a fine point, but including county elected offices, that's constitutional offices, not
representatients from those offices. Yes.
Right, but it's not the Board of Supervisors. It's
correct. Yes. Yes, you're absolutely correct. It is not the Board of Supervisors. By elected offices, I mean sheriff, treasurer, those non-board member positions that are also elected. So again, we have an overview of how the budget progressed for FY '25 as it moved through those review stages. As you can see, we started out at 117 million. That was what was requested. That was reduced to about 107 million once the budget task force had completed their review, and then further reduced to 88 million by the county administrator's review, and then landed at about 90 million after the budget subcommittee review. As I previously mentioned, budget subcommittee is the point in time in which funding is decided for the schools. For last year in particular, they were allotted an additional $2 million over the prior year. So that really accounts for the change that you see there, moving from the county administrator's review to budget subcommittee. And that concludes the presentation for today. Hopefully it wasn't too painful. Are there any questions I can answer at this time?
nice to have it all laid out for us before we get into it.
I really appreciate the proactive nature of this, and so everybody can kind of know what's coming. So thank you very much for that. And it's really good to know what lies ahead.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Katie. Well, this is where we're at that never land of do you take a break or not? And I'm thinking we don't need to, so I'm going to proceed. Item number 14, VATI, wishes to pronounce it, Virginia Telecommunications Initiative.
It's death by power.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen in the audience. This agenda item is for your consideration and of a Virginia Telecommunications Initiative broadband grant for Comcast to deliver fiber to the home services in the Blue Ridge community of approximately 62 addresses. This is the fourth project that Botetourt County has worked on with the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative. We'll have a little summary information about that. But project information here, as I mentioned, 62 addresses in the Blue Ridge community, which would include 5 businesses. This project is relatively small compared to the other ones that we've managed. This would construct 6.38 miles of fiber conduit, both aerial and underground, and would connect to Comcast's existing network in the county. We are estimating 2 years to complete this project, given what we should expect to be delays with make-ready work, which is typically adapting existing utility poles and crossing railroads and so forth. But we do anticipate a shortened project timeframe than the 2 years. Total project budget is $627,636. There are no county dollars in this project. This includes a $395,000 grant from the Commonwealth of Virginia with the VATI program and $232,225 invested by Comcast directly. The Economic Development Authority, as with the 3 previous projects, would administer the grant funds as an economic development performance agreement with Comcast. And in your packet, you have the local agreement among the Board of Supervisors, Comcast, and the Economic Development Authority. It's been prepared and reviewed by counsel for both the county and Economic Development Authority as well as Comcast. And additionally, at about 12 o'clock this afternoon, we did receive the grant agreement from the Commonwealth of Virginia that has been very quickly reviewed, and it is the customary document that the Attorney General's office approves. And so you also have that. Mr. Clinton also has that here at the desk. So happy to take any questions and any comments about this particular project.
Thank you, Ken. Are there any questions? Do we know what our charge is here?
To consider and approve both agreements, the one with the Commonwealth of Virginia and the local agreement with Comcast and the Economic Development Authority as presented.
You are seeking board approval of the agreement?
Yes, please. Yeah. And here's a map showing the approximate location of the 62 addresses.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Ken, we've been working on this project for some time.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to see that this has come to this position right now, finally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a long been waiting. So thank you for all our work.
Sure.
How complete does this make us now?
That is hard to estimate precisely. Each provider, and we have roughly 6 providers in the county. Each provider has its own service area map. They don't typically share those with us or with the Commonwealth. But we can make an estimate that we have worked with providers to deliver service to approximately 95% of our households during the last several years. And we estimate, again, it's an estimate, that in 2018, when the broadband study was done, that number of fiber to the home was more like 25% or 1 in 4. And now we're, I would say, within 90 to 95%.
Thanks.
Sure. We still have some pockets that we need to address, and we are.
About 600 households? Is it?
Thereabouts, yes.
Okay, do we feel prepared to act on this?
Yes.
Proposed agreement?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agreements.
there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve this draft agreement in front of us for VATI. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Fifteen is Mr. Morales, Recreation Incentive Fund presentations.
Thanks so much. All right, well, thank you everybody for the time to speak about the Recreation Incentive Fund. I'm excited to present to you 6 different projects that in total are $90,000 roughly in the amount that the projects are requiring. And then the Rec Incentive Fund allows for kind of a 50% match to try and make those projects a reality for these individual organizations. All right, so for the people in the room and for you all as well, purpose of the Recreation Incentive Fund since 1998 has been to provide this matching funding for community-focused organizations wishing to make these recreation-related capital improvements within Botetourt County. In total, $55,000 in funding was budgeted for within the fiscal year 2025. The process for where we are today to get here, originally they submit applications in September. I, as the Parks and Recreation Director, evaluated those to see if they fit the current guidelines. I presented those individual projects to the Parks and Recreation Commission. The individuals also presented these projects to them. They have determined that 6 of the projects are eligible for funding according to these current grant guidelines. And in total, the amount of money that is requested in this reimbursement kind of process at the end of the project's completion is about $44,550.95. So what is requested is less than what is currently available in the budget. One thing I would like to commend as well is that a lot of these projects, 5 out of 6 of them, parent-teacher associations in the schools are providing a lot of the funding for them up front, alongside some of the school administrators and other people. So a lot of individuals put a lot of hard work into these projects that I'm about to share. So Troutville Elementary School, the Parent Teacher Association, they have a project of $15,911. They're requesting about $7,955.50. This project all revolves around completely repainting the gym walls, the doors, door frames, window frames, ceiling rafters, and the rock wall inside of their building. They see this building as a community center for Troutville. They see it as a place that students go and play basketball through our Parks and Recreation program. And then they have assemblies and other things beyond recess and beyond school that this building is available for. Central Academy Middle School, for those of you who don't know, their baseball and softball, they do not have a facility on site to provide for those games. So they actually play at the Buchanan Elementary School and the park kind of right behind there as well. So they're looking for $5,960 in funds to kind of complete their project cost of $11,920, so they can put 2 new scoreboards for their varsity teams to be able to have the scores kept there. Their current scoreboards are out of date, been around for a long time. And then they also suggested that we could use them as well for our programming if they were to be given the funding for this project. Cloverdale Elementary School. So once again, another PTA kind of funded project. Their total project is about $18,270.90. They're requesting about half of that, $9,135.45. There's 2 different things. So they had a kind of vote throughout the school where 70% of the votes were for a new spider climber, which is the image on the bottom left. They would like that. And they would also like to add some padding to one of their spinners, which is pictured on the right. Kids, currently there is no pad and kids fall off of the current spinner that is there. And so they are looking to have some kind of padding to help kind of protect those kids. Once again, it is a publicly available resource outside of the school hours on the weekends that people can utilize. Greenfield Elementary School, the Parent Teacher Association has put forth this project. Total cost $14,770. The funds that they're requesting is about half of that, $7,000. And this project is for a blacktop area near the recreation fields. They say that it is in need of repair. They are looking for a space for their 4th and 5th grade students. They play on this regularly. Community groups use this, especially when kids are playing out on those fields as well. Other kids and families just come and use this space. So they're looking to improve this, this resource here. Colonial Elementary School, their Parent-Teacher Association is looking to create a handicap accessible seating area and walking path using paver patios and having a walkway installed. They're attempting to make this area wheelchair accessible for their students and the public. This is behind their gymnasium, so they want it to be an outdoor classroom. They want it to be a recreational space for people and an access point to the gymnasium that is at their school. And this project costs, once again, $19,500. Funds requested $9,500. Right, and the final project to bring to you today, this project costs, they're budgeting for $10,000 and the funds requested is $5,000. They are looking to upgrade the outdoor basketball courts at the Buchanan Elementary School. And then this would also include 2 new basketball goals and a court resurfacing, and new painted lines for the asphalt there has not been tended to in a long time. And those are, like I said, these 6 things that the Parks and Recreation Commission under the current guidelines have brought to y'all's attention. And now what we are asking for is your approval, a vote on if these 6 projects are to receive that grant match funding. Projects have an 18-month timeline to be completed. And they have regular updates that they provide me and the Parks and Recreation Department to ensure that they complete the projects. If they do not complete it in that time, then that money rolls over into future projects beyond that 18-month time frame.
Thank you for the presentation. As you indicated, this has been in existence since 1998. It's been a good program. There's been some discussion among some of us that the subscriptions to the program have declined. It used to be really, really competitive. I mean, we had a hard time getting everything that we wanted done within the 50,000 allocation. And this time we didn't quite get up to the 50,000 or 55, whatever the number is. And some of the nature of the project seems to have changed somewhat, drifted towards schools, which is fine, but there's other types of recreation too. So I'm just wondering if the Parks and Recreation Commission next time, for next year, can't begin a program to maybe publicize it better. This isn't necessarily your responsibility, Victor, but you'd be part of it. Somehow make the program a little more robust. No quarrel with what we're approving here. It just could be broader, and maybe it could include walking tracks or the facilities here in Greenfield, or something more than what we've been doing here.
Yep.
These are fine, but by themselves, they're a little unimaginative. So do you have any sense for that?
Yeah, we received about triple the interest. So there were about 12, maybe 15 projects that had come to us and asked us about it. We had reached out to multiple different organizations who have completed previous projects to kind of see what their interests are. Many of them were like, "Oh, I'm ready to apply. When do we apply?" And then never, finalize the application process at that point. We have had conversations with the commission about, is the Recreation Incentive Fund accomplishing what it is that we would like it to accomplish? And they have suggestions as well as to changing guidelines. Potentially maybe one piece of feedback that I had received from some organizations is that what is required of this is to have 100% of the funding in their pocket, in their bank account, ready and available to spend, where they may not have all that money at the beginning, so it prevents them from wanting to apply. So potentially, changing it where it's not 50%, maybe it's an 80-20 match. Maybe there's additional opportunities to make it for people who cannot, completely afford it, from their own who do not want to have so much stake in the game could be possible. There's been a lot of conversations between the commission and us in the advertising and the communications department, as well as making it more approachable for smaller organizations who may not be able to afford it.
Okay, very good.
Mhm.
So the matter lies before us. Any questions from board members, comments? I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We move and approve that we allocate the 44,000 plus or minus to the Recreation Incentive Fund. Is there discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That is approved. Thank you, Vic.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Okay, we have a Apex monthly fund or monthly update, which we're all ready to present. We have appointments, citizen comment period, board comments, and fire and EMS appropriations. Is that right, Jason? You still have an item on here, don't you? Yeah. Number 7.
We've done that. We did that.
We did that.
We did that. Okay. Okay, go ahead with Apex update.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon to you and members of the board. As I replied or recounted to you all just a few weeks ago at the November update, VDOT has issued site plan approvals for both the on-site and the off-site construction plans. And we have been working through various iterations of the outstanding comments that staff had on both the on-site and off-site. And we are gearing up and nearing the company having addressed nearly all of those items. And so we get into a point where we get towards plan approvals in any of our commercial site plan operations where there's a lot of back and forth conversation and communication to make sure that we are able to sign off on everything that is required. There's lots of moving parts and pieces as I continue to recount and relate to you all. And so that's where we are. I've been working with legal counsel on the bond amounts, the bond forms, the sureties, and all of those things, just to, again, ensure that the site plans are in accordance with the county code and with the conditions that the board set forth in their approval. So there is, again, continuing to work towards potential approval, and it may be that I will have a different report for you all next month. So I will take any questions that you have, and thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from Ms. Pendleton? Off easy, thanks.
Thank you.
Appointments, we have 3 of them. The first is consider reappointment of Brian Blake to the Board of Zoning Appeals. He's filling the remainder of the term for his predecessor, Gene Cash. The term will end March 31st, 2025. If reappointed, the new term will end March 31st, 2030. He is willing to serve.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That goes forward, and Mr. Blake will be appointed.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify for everybody's knowledge,
Sir.
The BZA appointments to the Board of Zoning Appeals are actually finally made by the circuit court judge. He just likes you guys to be the ones who go out and twist arms to find a good volunteer. So I will transmit your recommendation to Judge Branscombe shortly.
Okay, thank you. The next is we are to consider reappointment of Bobby Russell to the Blue Ridge Behavioral Healthcare Board of Directors as an at-large representative. His term will expire on December 31st, 2024, which is next week. If reappointed, the new term will end on December 31st, 2027. He was unanimously endorsed at the October meeting of the Blue Ridge Behavioral Health Board, and he is willing to serve. I'll move for reappointment of Mr. Russell.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Mr. Russell will be appointed. And finally, consider appointing Mr. Michael Parrish to the Blue Ridge Behavioral Healthcare Board of Directors, filling the vacancy created at the retirement of Dr. Carol Geiger. Dr. Geiger completes her third and final term on December 24th, next week, and has referred Mr. Michael Parrish. Parrish is a Botetourt resident, has been a previous member of the board, and is interested in serving. If appointed, if appointed, he will start his first term on January 1st, 2025, a week or two from now, and will be eligible to serve 3 full-year terms. He's willing to serve. I'll entertain a motion for Mr. Michael Parrish to be appointed.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, sir. I'll second it. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That appointment will take place. And finally, next to the last thing, citizen comment periods. This is citizen comment period, singular. Any comments from citizens on any topics? Okay. Board member comments. No comments from board members? No Merry Christmases?
Yep. Enjoy your holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for a good year, and we're moving forward into a new year in a couple of weeks. Meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Victor, can we catch you? Go in there. That's right. All my stuff in there. No, let's go in that.